Welcome, listeners slash viewers, as I now like to call you, viewers, short to Dear Rach and Soph. I am Sophie Green,
And I'm Rachel Johns. Hi, everyone.
and we've been doing this for a while, Rachel, right?
Hey, I
You
know,
know,
but I have no concept of time, I don't think anymore.
we, you know how I'm marking it? We've done it through 2 seasons of Farmer Wants a Wife.
Hmm. We have. Oh my goodness. Do you know, as we're recording this tonight, is the reunion. Is the reunion episode? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's got
yes.
going on at 9 something p.m. after Honeymoon Island, which I will not be
Are
watching.
you serious? The Honeymoon Island's on first. I hadn't
Yes.
seen this. Oh my goodness. That
Well,
means I have to
it's
stay up
Seven's new
late.
show. They've been advertising it
Well,
all.
well, they should put it on tomorrow. I thought it would. Oh.
Yep. Honeymoon Island on first, and then the reunion of Farmer Wants a Wife. When you and I both know that the reunion of Farmer Wants a Wife is probably going to rate better. But anyway,
Oh, well, I don't know after this season.
well,
I mean,
that's
I think
well,
so
look,
many people are ready to throw in the towel, me included. For anyone who's listening, I have done recaps, or who doesn't know why we're talking this. I've done recaps for Farmer Wants a Wife, and Sophie's helped me with a couple of episodes here and there. And I've done it for, I think this is my third or fourth year. And last year I was a little bit ho-hum, but this year I'm completely cranky about the whole thing. I don't know what the editors and producers were thinking. They let lots of people leave early, and as my husband, even who doesn't watch much, was saying the other day when we are driving somewhere, if there's a if they're allowed to leave early, then they should sign up that they have to show, you know, for the duration of the filming period, we have to see how their relationship's going.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know
Because
what I mean?
what's the point of getting invested in a character and
Like
then
2 weeks or
yeah?
less.
So the character who left early, the character I'm talking about him like he's not.
Well, I feel like they are real, kind of characters because they're definitely portrayed as characters because they
That's
are
true.
manipulated and edited to look a certain way.
Well, and the thing is now we're all in on the edits, right? So we'll go, oh, that's the villain edit,
Yeah, yeah,
that's the winner edit. And sometimes they'll try to confuse us and do things a different way, but usually not. Usually the signifiers are all correct.
that's true. And it makes you I feel a little bit more awkward about recapping and saying not nasty things, but not even judgmental things, but observations, certain observations now. I'm like, well, looks like she's this type of person, but we all know what happens in reality TV. So, A, maybe she's not. And B, if she's not, eventually she's going to be reading this or hearing, not necessarily reading my stuff, but hearing how people are talking about her.
Mhm.
And it kind of gets a little bit murky and gross. And it's gross because I think the first few episodes, or the first 10 episodes of Farmer Wants a Wife, actually were this really like genuine well, it was a genuine series with the genuine
Yeah, with
obviously
great
they want to make
outcomes.
money. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Obviously they want ratings and stuff, but they did it in a beautiful way that actually resulted in quite a few relationships. Now apparently one of these seasons are still together at least, who knows? And we went, that's the other thing. Why did they do the reunion a month after they finished filming? Because really anyone can be together after a month. You want to know what's going on now.
I
But
suppose what they're really hoping for is a dramatic implosion within that month so that they can be like, oh, no, they're no longer together. Like it's just,
yeah, except they go on. They sort of their tagline is, Australia's most or the world's most successful dating show kind of thing. Or successful, something like that. So, you'd think they'd want them to be together. Maybe that's why they still do it only a month after because people are more likely to be
be
together.
together. Yeah.
Saying that, I think last week they had, sorry for anyone who's not found Once a Wife, we promise we'll get on to talking
We're
about,
talking about storytelling, really. That's what,
yeah, we are.
yeah.
But last week, I think what showed is, and you're talking about storytelling, right? Everyone always asks, what happened next in the book? They want more of the book. And what people really loved at the end of last week's episode, wasn't the drama so much that's happened throughout. And I feel like it's been staged drama. I don't feel like any of the drama we've seen this year has actually been genuine drama. I feel like it's been staged, which makes you feel kind of ripped off. But everyone loved the looking back on the previous couples and seeing, who's still together, who's having babies, who's engaged, whatnot. And, that's because we're invested. But I don't really
Totally. Yeah.
feel as invested in the couples that, you know,
It's the caliber of cowboy, Rach. They've
yeah,
just not been there. And I know they can only work with
what
who.
they're given.
But
But there
honestly,
was a few really good ones earlier, and so it's hard to beat some of them. Yeah.
maybe the farmers are getting better at finding wives. Maybe there aren't as many
On
farmers.
their own.
Yeah,
They're using like internet dating apps and stuff now.
could be, because it
But
is
I
quite
do
a
think,
commitment.
I reckon, I don't know if it's true that they changed producers or whatever. I heard last year rumors that they changed producers, the same ones that were doing Love Island or Maths. Anyway,
Oh.
and if that's true, that's sad, but I don't know. Anyway, I think they need a shake up if they're gonna keep going, because, or a shake back.
Yeah, a shake back. I think that's
Sometimes don't change stuff if it's not broken, right?
well, that's right. And maybe they just don't have as many people who are willing to apply, because that's the other part of it. And I guess what's different now is that at the start of Farmer Wants Wife, social media wasn't really a thing.
So
Twitter was around,
true.
I think, but people were not posting the way they are now. There was no TikTok.
No.
And
There
so,
might have been a newspaper article about them or a magazine once they'd finished, but they weren't constantly getting feedback on their personality and
yeah,
their decisions. Yeah,
now what they have to deal with.
is a lot
And
more. You're right.
a lot of them, you know, people from the land. I know people from the
Yeah.
land. It's not really on brand for them to be wanting to deal with that sort of feedback on social media.
No, it's not at all. Yeah. So it does
They have
make,
other things to do, like, you know, be primary producers, making our food.
yeah, maybe it's time for, as I said, farmer wants a wife to somehow, I mean, it's hard to protect people like they're candidates, is that the word? Participate, I don't know. It's hard to protect them in a way, but I do think that the way the producers um edit the show, that they're not doing the people any favors, and if they were, more realistic in their editing, and I know people think they want drama, and we do want drama in books and stuff, but these are real people, and it's quite fascinating just to hear conversations and stuff that aren't set up. But if they were less edited and less produced, then maybe there would be less of backlash on social media, because they wouldn't be, creating a villain character and creating, drama between women that aren't there or something like that.
For all we know, they wanted Jared to leave early, for example. They wanted Tom to leave early. They wanted to have this kind of imbalance of it.
Well, if that's the case, then they're idiots.
Well, they are, because what used to happen was that they all had to stick it out on the farm.
Exactly.
You had to wait until the end,
You know
even
what?
if they weren't all getting on.
Exactly. I also wonder if that's a reflection of our society now too. It's like, everyone wants stuff fast, and, no one's prepared to put in the hard yards and wait. It's like, but yeah, I think, we missed the camaraderie between the farms and stuff as well, because we didn't really see. Now, I did hear a rumor that some guy was cut after they'd filmed the whole.
Oh, yeah, I think that was more than a rumor. I think they
Yeah.
filmed a promo with him.
So if that's true, then it would have been very hard to.
Yeah, that's true.
They would have
Maybe
lost
Jared was a late ring or something. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, today we have a guest, and
We have a guest, and the guest
someone from
now.
Farmer Wants a Wife.
So we have what? Sorry,
A guest, and it's not someone from Wants a Wife.
I thought you were about to say she's Farmer Wants a Wife for Jason. I was going to say, well, that's interesting.
No, well, that gives it away maybe for some the eager listeners. I was going to say, she might not be from Farmer Wants a Wife, or we'll have to ask if she watched Farmer Wants a Wife and what's her thoughts. But the lovely Maya Linnell is our guest today, and she does write rural romance, so she might have an opinion on this. So we'll have to ask her.
So yeah,
quickly read her bio before we invite her in.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Maya Linnell grew up in a small country town, climbing towering gum trees and reading her way through her family's bookshelves before discovering a never-ending supply of romance novels. Sorry, I added the romance in there. Never-ending supply of novels at the local libraries, because we're talking about romance for Farm Wants a Wife, possibly. She found her feet in journalism, working in a rural newspaper, before segueing into public relations and now fiction writing and blogging for the Romance Writers of Australia. Maya currently lives in rural Queensland with her husband and 3 children. Her latest novel is Cockatoo Cove. And when she's not writing, she engages in a variety of other creative activities, and that's what we're going to talk to her mostly about today.
Yes, we are indeed. For those of you who are listening, not watching, you missed me holding up the book Cockatoo Cove. So you'll have to go and check it online. I'm going to put us on pause and we'll bring Maya in.
Hi, Maya, and welcome to our podcast. How are you today?
Really good. Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be here with you and Soph.
We're
Great
so
to see you,
excited.
Maya. And we have a really important question to start with.
Mm.
It's super critical to everyone's understanding of what's going on here. Do you or
And
do
no,
you
it's not
not?
about real politics.
Do you or do you not watch Farmer Wants a Wife?
Look, I do a bit. I dabble in Farmer Wants a Wife. I loved the early seasons. I
Yeah.
was so devoted to the show back then. But then I feel like it's descended a little bit into that drama, the women against women. And what I really want to see is I want to see people that have a genuine connection
Mm.
to the country, that have a legitimate interest in moving to the country.
Yes.
And I want to see some people that are a bit older as well, some K's on
Mm.
the clock.
I agree.
When we were talking about it in our intro, we said exactly that about how the earlier seasons were better. But your point about people being genuinely interested in moving to the country, I remember that in the previous seasons that used to be much more prevalent, that there were women who were genuinely committed to a rural lifestyle or wanting to start one if they didn't have one. And now there's a bit of a sense of, oh, maybe I'll move. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
agree. Go on there unless you, I mean, and let's face it, sometimes it might be a shock if you haven't had anything to do with rural life before or lived in a small town. So that, they might genuinely have a desire to go, but then get there and go, oh no, this is not for me. But you feel like there's quite a few that just go, oh, I just want to have a bit of fun and,
yeah. And look, I feel like I always get so excited about the start of the season. And I
Yeah.
think, look, it's going to be great. It's that romance, it's that country charm. And it's always really good right at the start, right until they get to the farms and they go, oh, I'm actually really terrified of sheep, or I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
possibly get this beautiful manicure dirty. And I think, oh my goodness, you really have no idea. Like, did you not research the whole concept of farmer wants a wife?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched the
influencer
show
wants a wife.
before. Sometimes you wonder if these people have watched the show before. But then
Mm.
I also think it's a lot to do with the editing, and that's gone downhill, and they've tried to add that drama in there. I reckon some of it I was saying beforehand is definitely forced this season. And we have editors, but our editors don't ruin our stuff, right? They make it better. Where I think sometimes
But Maya, I do think your point about rural life leads nicely into talking about your books, because you have these books where you create these communities on the page that are rural communities. Excuse me. And so I'm wondering, whether you actually, because you live on the land, so are you really conscious of representing rural life in a way, I guess, and perhaps to people who don't know much about it?
Yeah, definitely, Sophie. Look, that was one of the things that I told myself when I started writing rural romance. And when I started the manuscript, the very first thing I was really conscious of is I don't want to make a caricature of anyone in the country. Like, I don't want it to be the stereotypical, oh, here's someone and they only ever wear Akubras and RMs and they've got a piece of hay in the corner of their mouth at all times and they wear overalls, because I don't know anyone like that.
yeah.
And I feel like that's, really misrepresenting and not doing a good service to the small communities that I've always lived in and loved. So, yeah, I really wanted to make sure I was shining a spotlight on issues that are important to the people that I know and people that I meet along my travels when I'm out and about in rural Australia, and make sure that I'm celebrating country life. I'm not making it as a spectacle. It's, this is what it's like when you're out and about in the places that I've lived anyway.
The good and the bad. I think actually it's really important, especially in the last, well, with everything going on in the world, but especially like with rural Australian issues, that we don't often hear about them so much in the media, and the farmers are often forgotten. I think it's really important actually when we do have a platform to explore some of these issues as well in our books.
Yeah, I do too. And I think also it's an opportunity, and you would know exactly, Rach, it's that Trojan horse. We can put these issues that are super important and sneak them in under the guise of rural romance. So people are getting that beautiful, warm, cozy feeling when they're reading the book, but they're always learning something about, you deal with so many great issues in your books, just like you do too, Sophie. And it's not beating someone over the head with it. You need to know all about succession planning, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need to
yeah,
know
yeah.
about farm safety, or
And the thing is, like in the commercial fiction genre, which we're all in, right? You get people reading the books that may not be reading, a book, articles about rural, like climate change or farming, problems in Australia, or who might not watch, just the TV shows about that. But then they might get interested through reading the rule books, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Can I ask you a quick question? Oh, sorry for butting in.
That's all right.
Because we launched straight into the fact that you write rural fiction, and I love your description of the warm, cozy feeling and uplifting, but also showcasing, you know, what the bush and the country towns are like. Did you always, like, when you decided to write? Did you always? I know you were a journalist first. Did you always want to be a fiction writer or a novelist, as I like to say, or and B, was it always going to be this small town fiction that you want to write?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to write, but I never articulated the fact that that I wanted to write a book until it was about 2016. My husband and I were having this conversation where I was looking at returning to the workforce. I'd been at home with my 3 kids for quite a while, and I was really nervous about getting back into work. And I said, I'm just not sure how journalism and newspapers are going to fit with mum life and, you know, being present there for the sports days and the drop-offs and the pickups. And maybe I should go to uni and do a teaching degree or something like that. Something just retraining in a different area. And Jason said, you know, well, what if you do anything? What would it be? And I said, oh, well, you know, I've always wanted to write a book, but everyone does, don't they? And it wasn't until that day. I had never once sat around thinking, I really want to write a book. But it was that the question was put to me. I thought about it, and that's what came out. And it was a surprise to him as much as it was to me.
Did he say, no, everyone doesn't want to write a book?
So his exact words were, well, you read enough books, you may as well write one.
Well, and it can't have been much after that you actually had your first book published, because 2016 you had several books out. So what was the process of writing that first book for you?
Yeah, so I got straight into it. I had been listening to podcasts. I got straight into, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try and put some scaffolding underneath me. I'm going to, and it's that journalist instinct, you know, you want to research your topic. You don't want to just launch in completely into the dark. You want to know what you're walking into. So I spent a long time listening to podcasts. And if yours had been around at the time, I'm sure I would have absolutely devoured many episodes of this one. But I did a 12-month Write Your First Draft course. And then I had a manuscript all nice and ready. It was, you know, completely out of shape and it needed a lot of work, but at least I had a completed 100,000 word manuscript by the end of that year. And then I launched straight into the Let's Do Your Second Draft course, because I thought, well, you know, that was a great help having that form work and accountability. But because I wanted to pitch at the Romance Writers Conference in 2018, I kind of fast-tracked that course. So I worked, you know, advance through that course so that specially I could, you know, have something ready to pitch. And yeah, that's pretty much, I kind of slid in just before the conference and managed to score my publishing contract. And I wanted to write what I knew because my dad had said that. And COCKATOO Cove, my new book, is dedicated to him, as was my very first book, was dedicated to my mum and dad, because he passed away last year. But he had always said, you will write a book one day, Maya. And he also said, write what you know. As a journalist, you know, he knew that that was where my strength would lie, and that's where his strength lay as well.
So you pitched and got your contract from RWA, did you? Like through the...
Well, I was actually quite lucky in that I was doing a little bit of due diligence and a bit of sneaky research, and I saw the names of the different publishers coming up before the conference in the RWA, Romance Writers Australia newsletter, where they introduce, here's Annette Barlow from Alan Unwin. She'll be taking pictures. She's looking for rural romance in the genre of Rachel Johns and Carly Lane and Fleur McDonald. And so I went, oh, I'm going to do a bit of research here. I better, just in case, you know, I don't get the pitch with Annette or the other publishers. I want to know
what happened with this, actually. Anyway.
So I wanted to know what she looked like. And luckily for me, Annette could see from my profile, my socials, that I'd written a manuscript. I had a journalism background. I lived in the country. I had
Did you follow her? Did you follow her?
Yeah, so I followed her, and she had a little squiz. Who is this Maya Linnell sneaking into my feed and following my private account? But it worked out well in the end.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's actually an interesting point where you were saying that Annette had gone onto your socials and seen that you'd written a draft, because I get asked as a publisher as well as an author, and Rachel, you're probably asked by writers who haven't yet been published whether they should put any time into social media and building a profile. So it sounds like in your case, that was absolutely a good thing to do because Annette then could have a sense of you before she met you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was advice that I'd learnt early on from, a romance writers course when I'd signed up when I was first doing my first draft of my first manuscript. I took a workshop in how to build your author brand and platform. And I know RWA has got another one coming up really soon along those lines. And those little do it at home courses like that are just so invaluable. I can't, sing the praises enough because I knew that I needed to have this platform and I'd started it, a good year or two before. So it wasn't just, all right, I've completed my manuscript, I'm ready for someone to buy it. And, there's 3 posts before,
Yeah.
I've got a presence. Oh, actually, that sounds really egotistical. I've got
what you mean.
I've got a track record.
Yeah.
I'm not just someone who's appeared.
Because I think like you hear that advice a lot, and I would actually often go and say, don't worry about that if you like, because the publishers would get you anyway, like if the book's good, and you probably would have got Annette through a pitch maybe or someone another way, who knows. But I also think it depends on the person, right? You clearly are very organized, disciplined person, right? We talk to people who off the screen and on who are struggling to even finish their first book, and they're worried about doing their platform, and it's like, well, don't focus on the platform, then focus on the book. But if you're someone like yourself who can obviously compartmentalize and do a few things at once, and then obviously it's not a bad thing, and if you enjoy it and you're clearly good at it. So I think it depends on the person. But yeah, it's so great to hear sometimes it does work.
Look, I think it could have been, if my manuscript was not,
it wouldn't have helped.
Not captivating, or it didn't have, that little glimmer of potential.
Yeah.
Then, all the beautiful pictures on my socials wouldn't have helped me. But because I had I'd done the hard yards, and
yeah, it wasn't the socials that got you the contract. It helped get you seen.
Yeah.
What
But
sort
it
of
was
things
part of the scaffolding is what I'm thinking.
saying.
Yeah, like that's
what sort of things had you put on there already?
Yeah, so I talked about going to author events. So I was a regular at my local library. I would go regularly to listen and try and work out what the magic formula was to get a publishing contract. And I
so what's the magic formula, Maya? Did you work it out?
Have a book ready to go. Don't just try and
I think, look, and actually just to slip in as an aside before, and I do want to hear the rest of that answer, obviously, but that is something I've found as someone who takes pictures, that quite often people turn up without anything even remotely finished. Sorry, Maya, go on.
No, you're right. So I do. I love to be organized, Rach. You are on the money there. I like to think if I'm going to do something, I would do it as well as I can. And I had pictures of, us going wood cutting as a family, the pigs that we'd raised from little piglets and their cute antics, my garden that I was just developing. We bought a paddock and built a house and did this garden from complete scratch. We had 2 acres of garden by the end of it. So just little things, I guess, that made, that featured in my books. So I thought, well, if people kind of like the things that I like, then they might like the books that I'm going to write as well. And, that kind of gathering of like-minded people, as well as writers, and showing that I was committed to writing and hitting word counts and joining RWA and looking forward to the conference and that type of jazz.
I think you're a very good example of how to build your brand before, while writing your book.
And also it being authentic. This is the other thing. As you said, Maya, these are all things that you're doing already. It's not like you decided to get a garden in order to
that would be very dedicated. Yeah, really. I'm gonna buy 2 acres or whatever, and
I'm sure some people have done it
so that I can publish and have pigs.
But I'm also interested in because obviously storytelling, you were talking about your father being a journalist, so storytelling is something that's in your lineage, shall we say. You're a journalist, and then you started to build this social media profile, storytelling in the way you created your content at the same time as you're writing fiction. I'm wondering whether that understanding of storytelling, as it started to roll out on social media, like the way you were thinking about how to communicate with people, actually influenced the way you wrote that first manuscript.
Yeah, perhaps that's a really good way. I hadn't thought about it that way, Sophie, but yeah, no, that does sound pretty spot on, actually.
Because I just think it's all about communication, really. That's, to me, that's what's coming across from your work, is that, you know, you're an expert communicator.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And you've built a good community in your readers, as we see communities in your books as well. Your first book was one of 4 in a series, right?
Yeah, so I do say series loosely, but linked standalone.
Was that also a strategic move, or did it just happen?
No, it was quite strategic. So I decided to write, and I always loved, and I know you guys love, Marion Keyes, Monica McInerney, Maeve Binchy, these storytellers that would have these extensive cast of characters that would show up book after book, and you would just love seeing what they're up to at that stage of their life. So when I wrote it, initially I was thinking I'd have 3 sisters, 1 family farm, and I'd do a book on each. And I thought, no, look, I'm one of 4. I'm going to have 4 sisters. And that was so good to know. Like, I didn't know what the other books were going to be about, apart from the fact that they would be about each of the different McIntyre sisters and set in the Western Districts of Victoria, which is an area I know really well. That was my kind of overall plan. And so I had that in my mind when I said to Annette, you know, yes, I do have a manuscript ready to go. I've already started working on the second book, and I have a plan to do 4. There's 4 sisters in this first story, and I want to do a book on each of them. And so for her, she felt reassured that I wasn't just jumping out there with one rural romance, and then all of a sudden I was going to turn to horror, and then the next book I would want to do crime, and the book after that I'd do a self-help book. She's like, okay, Maya's got a plan.
I reckon you should do a self-help book though, Maya.
Well, and it's, yeah, and it could be something to do with living a creative life, right? Because you do other things. You bake, you sew, and I'm still intrigued by the 2-acre garden, because as I do bush care, which doesn't mean I have a garden that I'm planting, but I get my hands in the dirt enough that I'm calculating the weeds you have 2 acres. So how did you actually plan that garden, or did it develop as you were going?
Yeah, it developed as we went on. So it was actually an 8-acre block that we'd bought, and we knew, you know, we'd cut off some and make a house yard, and then we'd have the rest for sheep, cows, pigs, and chickens. And then, you know, we had this small garden. It's like, this is just not big enough. We, you know, if we're sitting upstairs and looking out over it, we don't just want to look at paddock. We want to see more roses, more dahlias, more fruit trees. Oh. So I think it was before that first RWA conference, my husband said, yep, let's do it. You know, we can see maybe our kids could get married in this garden. Oh. And I'm like, oh, okay, you sold me on that one. You've done a lot. Alert, we have since sold that property, so no children of ours are likely to be getting married in that garden. But
yes, in like 9 years, you wrote all these books. You did a massive garden. Like, I've followed you on socials pretty much all that time, and you know, and you also have time to bake and do sewing. Yeah, like be an amazing mum and show you all the things that you do with them. Like, and you said you planned the garden. Do you plan your books as well?
Yeah, I like to have a good old go at planning them. They don't always follow my plan, but yes, I do. I like to think about them for, you know, a good month or 2 before I start writing them. They're just percolating in my brain as I'm working on the copy edits of the previous one. And then I sit down and I brainstorm, and I have a book which is not right by my side at the moment, which it should be, because then I could show you on the screen. But I will, do some brainstorming. Here's this character. Here's what they like. Here's their family. Here's what they call their grandfather. Here's their job. And here is their link to the other main character. So I'll have, you know, my main character, Maggie West here, and she's got her border collies, and she's got a sister and a close-knit family. And then I've got Fergus, who's my Scottish winemaker over here, and they meet each other because of this. Like, so I'll have a little bridging, you know, speech bubble type of thing, and then I'll get colouring it, and it gives me joy to kind of look at it all pretty and colourful.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
So this is obviously you, because we were saying you have a book, so you're handwriting these notes. So do you feel that writing things by hand actually helps embed them in your memory, so that like they're in there marinating essentially while you're getting on with other things?
Yeah, absolutely, Sophie. I'm nodding away here for people that are listening on the podcast and not watching the video. Yes, I do. I love that sound. and that feeling of the pencil on the paper. Like I could listen to the sound of the scritch, scritch, scritch. And I think my kids call it, oh, they've got a special word for it, what they call it on the socials. I'm sure they'll yell it out to me
Like
from
the
the other
sound,
room.
like the sound of what?
The sound of something. So in particular, I don't know, they call it ASM or something.
Or ASMR.
There you
Yeah,
go. That's what they
ASMR,
call.
yeah.
That's what the trendy kids call it these days.
You learn something new every day.
So there's pencil ASMR.
I
This is
love the pencil, that scritch, scritch, scritch. And I will
Oh.
fill pages and pages with just notes. And no one could probably read it. It probably wouldn't make sense. And it doesn't correlate with the end story often. You know, I'll write down ideas, but then sometimes I'll pick up that notebook after the book's been published and I'll look at it and I go, yep, I had that idea right from day one and that did follow through. And
Do
then
you ever look back as you're writing? Like, do you look back on the notebook as you're writing, or once you write, you sort of go ahead?
Yeah, I think it's just for my own, internal planning brain to get it out there. So at least I've got it on there and I feel like I've got this sense of control that maybe I know how it's going to pan out. And I do lots of what ifs, like what if Fergus, has to go back to Scotland? What if Maggie can't stand whatever his trade is? What if she hates wine? Like what if, like all these different things. What if, what if, what if? And then Fergus's wound could be, Fergus's secret could be. So I just kind of do that. And maybe that harks back to the journalism days where I had to stand there, not with a pencil, I would always use a pen. And I was out in the field with a little notepad at the sale yards, writing how many cows people sold and what the top price is. But that handwriting and getting it down, I think has always been something I've enjoyed doing.
You type your books when you're actually?
I certainly do, yes. And I'm trying to get better at dictating. Working slowly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to as well. I bought a thing that Stella Quinn showed me, but then I bought the wrong little microchip card thing, so I haven't started using it yet.
So Rachel's branching out into dictation and Scrivener, Maya.
I don't know. You know.
Well done.
Do you use Scrivener?
I love Scrivener, yes.
Oh, I need some tips because it's so funny. I said on yesterday's podcast, we've recorded a few together because we're having a bit of a break soon where we're having, stockpiling a few. And I was with Rachel Treasure last week and she and two other authors, and we were all sitting together by our laptops, and I was sitting next to her and I said, oh, you use Scrivener? She goes, don't you use Scrivener? And then I was like, no. And the others were like, no. And she's like, how do you write a book without Scrivener? And I downloaded it years ago. And this book that I'm writing has two kind of point of views, like different ways I'm doing. And I thought, oh, maybe it would be good to be able to color coordinate the different point of views and different stuff. Except I haven't worked out how to do the color coordinating yet.
You're just going to labels. So I'll have to tell you when we're off air.
Writing a note. All right. Thank you. Anyway, why did you use Scrivener, and have you ever written in Word? And
also dictation. I'm interested in why, because
how you do it and why.
Form of storytelling again.
Yeah, well, we'll start with Scrivener again without sounding like this is a paid advertisement for RWA. I did a course through Romance Writers. Alison Stewart did a wonderful, beginner's guide to Scrivener. And I'd heard of this mythical writing software. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is such a pain in the backside getting to know it. It's heaps easier because the first manuscript I did in Word. And I think part of the second manuscript I did as well. Yeah. But what I loved is that ability to color code and say, okay, all of Fergus's scenes are in green and all of Maggie's scenes are in purple, or all of the scenes that fall on a Monday are in blue, or all of the scenes that are in spring are in orange. There's all these little things, and I don't use even a tenth of the capabilities of this amazing.
That's what we've heard from all the people that we've met who use it. They say, you just use a few little bits.
Yeah, and the one thing I love over Word is that I can collapse the chapters. So I can have, all 20 chapters, and my books, vary. Some are 20, some are 24, some are whatever. Yeah. But at least I can, minimize them all. So I can easily in a whole thing see, okay, I need to go to chapter 12. Here it is. Maximize chapter 12 and pop, pop, pop. There's my 4 scenes from chapter 12. So that's what I love about Scrivener. Yes, I've written in Word. The dictation, I am such a rookie, but I've been getting really sore hands. And at the end of a day typing, they will just throb. And I thought, well, this is not very sustainable. And it was one of the things my dad made a very big point of saying to me, Maya, you need to, if you want to keep writing, you need to work out a different way to do this, because if you are ignoring the fact that your hands are throbbing at the end of a day, it's not going to last you long. And he even asked that question at my last hometown launch. So last year when I was launching Wallaby Lane in Millicent, South Australia, which is the library that I grew up going to, he put his hand up in the audience and said, Maya, can you tell us about dictation?
Oh, no, how funny. Sounds like a great guy.
A very subtle reminder that I needed to. And so I've been trying to do it, and I don't have a fancy software program for it because I'm wary of investing in just another piece of software and not using it.
I'm just like, buying stuff and thinking, what?
So I just use the microphone button on I use a MacBook. I've just got the basic MacBook Air, and F5 for me, I tap that and it starts, I start talking, it starts recording.
So you
it's
do it at your
hilarious. Oh, sorry, Rach.
You still do it at your desk then?
I do it at my desk, but then sometimes when I'm sick of sitting, because as well as fantastic hands that hurt at the end of the day, I've got a really dicky back. So I quite like to walk around at times.
Yeah.
But it's quite funny. Sometimes I'll say, Fergus peered into the back seat, and I look at it after I finish the back.
Peed?
He peed into the back seat. And sometimes someone said they won't do swear words. Well, it's accidentally put swear words in.
Oh.
Instead of Maggie faffed around, you can imagine what Maggie was doing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So
there's a word that dictation should recognize that.
Yeah. But it's been good because, and I try and do it more so for emails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just to train myself. And I heard Maisie Yates speak at a previous conference, and she said she will dictate messages and stuff. And then when she talks to her husband, she'll say, open single quote, Jason, can you please go and get the milk, full stop, and single quote, exclamation mark, or whatever.
Do you put all that stuff in when you're... Because that's what I quite liked listening to Stella. She had a trick that instead of doing that, maybe you could do this as well. She then, even though we know we've got issues with AI, she said what she does is she gets it all, like she types it all out without worrying about any of that. Then she puts it into AI to add the quote, the punctuation. But she has to very strictly tell it, just put the punctuation in. Do not, add your own stuff and flair. So she said she had to train it with that. But then she said it pretty much does a good job. So she does, because that's what I was just stressed about, going full stop, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, but it's just a matter of training yourself though, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. And I resisted it for quite a while. And then I thought, no, Maya, I need to work smarter.
You need to do it before you're desperate to do it. Like you need to learn it before.
Yes. Yeah. And Kelly Rimmer, she's spoken on podcasts about, using the dictation. She's got a fantastic software, I think called Dragon, that she uses. But yeah, I was just wary of, it being something that I didn't get along with. And then I've spent the money on the program. So I thought, well, I'll just try and see if I can do it using the complete capability of my Mac. And it's pretty good. I do. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Oh, that's good.
So is this something you're recently doing, or was COCKATOO Cove partly written with dictation?
Yeah.
No, mostly for the new manuscript, which it's in second draft stage at the moment. So I've got a fair bit of work to finish it. And sometimes I think the thing with using the dictation is you should reread that scene the day that you've written it, because the stuff ups that it will make can be quite confusing, trying to untangle when you've forgotten what it was you were trying to get across.
That's a tip.
But of course I want to plow on. I'm like, oh yes, I need to hit 2,000 words today, or 2,500 to keep moving to hit my targets. So I'm just going to do the next scene and then the next scene, and then maybe get a little bit carried away sometimes.
Well, that's all right, because if you're dictating it, then you can just let yourself go, and maybe do other things, like walk around the house, I don't know, while you're dictating, or be in the garden. Do you have a garden where you're living now?
I do. I have a small garden here. It's a different type of garden. There's frangipanis, there's mango tree, there's lots of citrus, which didn't do so well where we were down in Victoria, but is pretty prolific here. And, you know, a few roses, which is quite a different workload to over 100 roses.
Yeah. That's 100 roses need a lot of pruning.
Yeah, they do.
Time to write when you had a massive garden like that and all the baking that you do. But do you find that all that stuff like fuels your creativity in a way? I guess there's lots of thinking time about your stories when you're doing other things.
Yeah, it is enforced away time, and it is a great way. I would listen to audiobooks quite often while I was doing the weeding or the pruning or the fertilizing or the poisoning and all the different things that you need to do that are silent tasks. It's no good, you know, trying to listen to a podcast while you're mowing the lawn or hedging or anything like that. And that's, you know, those other noisier tasks were good for the thinking about plot points. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, you know, that garden bed's completely infested with weeds and I need to go get the kikuyu out of it. But it's that, you know, you're getting out of the chair instead of sitting at the computer and being frustrated. At least it's productive use of your frustrated time when you can't quite decide exactly what turn you want a character to take. Do you guys find that as well when you're kind of doing stuff?
I
Yes,
walk.
definitely.
Walking will help me solve plot problems.
Yes.
I love the walking, the driving, showers, hanging the washing, all that.
Yeah.
It's amazing doing the mundane tasks or doing something, you know, but when I'm cleaning and stuff, I mostly listen to audio or podcasts too. So that's not so much the time. But yeah, I do find getting away from the desk. And I find it's really important. This is why I was really curious. I mean, you've written one book a year since 2018. You've been coming out. Like that's a good steady pace, right? And I don't know if you've ever, you know, felt writer's block or approached burnout or anything like that. But I know after a lot of years of me doing that, I did. And I realized, and this is something that you maybe hadn't had a problem with, because I was doing really nothing in my life, apart from my kids and stuff. I was reading books in my spare time. You know, that was my free time. That's what I love doing. I was, you know, always inside doing my work. If I socialized with people, it was often writing friends and stuff. And so we're talking about, you know, I'd see my other friends, but so less. So I'm not messaging them daily and all that kind of stuff. And so I realized how important then it was to do other things aside from your writing and aside even from reading, like as much as we all love reading. So yeah, I just wondered, have you ever suffered from anything like that because of your pace, or do you think, you know, all those sort of things help you avoid that?
Yeah, I think a bit of both, Rach. I think I certainly do seem to find, usually about in May, when I've done, the first draft is done, the second draft is partway through. I know my new book's just about to come out in June because they always come out in the first weekend in June. So I know that I've got a tour looming and, you know, I'm about to go. And I love doing the library events and getting out and meeting readers and librarians. But I do find that once I've finished that first draft and I can see all the work that needs to be done in the second draft, but I haven't quite, you know, really broken the back of that second draft. That's when I find that I am probably the most knackered. That particular period, I think I kind of often Google university degrees and what can I do? Maybe I should become a librarian. Like it crosses my mind. And I've noticed a bit of a trend.
I'm dedicated that you, I'm sorry, I'm impressed that you Google university degrees. I just start going to Seek and like retail jobs.
Well, it's only because I don't have a uni degree. My journalism course was all through Country Press Australia with subjects at Deakin University. But when I tried to call up and claim them, they're like, yeah, that was so long ago. We don't even really have records. I'm like, I've got these assignments that I wrote.
Yeah, I've got the records.
And they've got Deakin University stamped all over them. I could send them to you. Anyway, so I every now and then I look at that, but I do find it seems to be in May. So then we kind of pop out the other side, the book's out, you know, you start seeing the nice reviews and you go, oh, that's right. I love writing. How could I?
Yeah, I can do this. Yeah. Can I ask one more question, Soph? Sorry.
Rachel, why are you apologizing for asking questions on your own podcast?
Sorry. I'm saying it again now. Anyway, I was just going to say, you talked about, you know, your draft schedule and your book comes out in May, like, and you have, I mean, not May, sorry, June, and you've had that for quite a few years. So do you have a pretty good writing schedule throughout the year in terms of that, you know, when you'll be starting a new book? Like I've heard, I can't remember which American male writer, it's like he always starts a book on like the 1st of September or something, no matter what's going, okay. And like, you know, he's got some sort of schedule. And then I talk to other writers and they do have that one book a year thing, and kind of, so they have bit more of a schedule like that. I guess, Soph, you probably have a time when you know you have
No,
to
I
have
don't have a
it
schedule.
back.
No.
Yeah,
It's squeezed in when it can be squeezed in. Let's put it-
true. I just, yeah. Anyway, so do you have like kind of, you know, how your year's going to look?
Yeah, I do. I do. So I know that in the first term, as soon as the kids are back at school, because it is tricky trying to write when I've got the kids home, and life just feels like it's, you know, summer holidays. I often take a decent whack of the summer holidays off social media as well. So I'll usually always be working on copy edits or typesetting edits during the summer holidays. But I know that at the start of each school term, term one, that is when I will be writing that first draft of that next year's book. And I must say, I was listening very enviously to your podcast with Carly Lane the other day, and she was saying how many books ahead she is. I'm thinking,
I know.
Wild.
I
That was
don't
wild.
oh, don't we wish? I know.
well, I would love to be ahead, but no, I'm kind of always working on next year's book, you know, the year before. So yes, term one, I'll always be working on that first draft. Term two, and I have to put it aside, obviously, when different levels of edits come back. Term two, I'll be working on the second draft and planning my book tour. Term three, I'll usually be doing book tour stuff and finishing up that second draft and submitting it to my publisher. And then usually towards the end of the school term three, I will get those structural edits back, and then I'll be in a world of pain. And you probably don't want to.
I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you, Maya. I'm laughing because I too am in a world of pain. And Rachel is usually fairly sanguine about her structural edits. So
yeah, I mean, I can be annoyed and upset that it's a lot of work, but yeah, I don't need to. I joke that I drink wine, but I actually don't really need to. I don't do that. And Sophie says she takes painkillers.
take Panadol.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Emotional pain.
It
So
is.
Maya,
It's painful though. Sorry.
Sorry.
Rach, what did you say?
Oh, I just said like it can be. I wouldn't say painful for me. I would say like stressful, and it's like, oh my goodness, how am I actually going to, like, I agree kind of with what you're saying, but that's a lot of work. So you know, it is a time where I think authors need to be kind to ourselves and take a breath.
Yep, absolutely. And what I find is that break with the school holidays, I try, obviously, if I'm over deadline and I don't have a choice and I'm working through it, and that's fine. But if I do get the choice, I try and spend that time refilling the creative world. So that's when I get the jigsaw puzzles out. That's when it's like, kids, what are we going to bake today? So today, you know, there's 3 banana cakes sitting on the bench that I've made because we had, you know, some bananas that needed using before we head off on the little book tour, the next leg. I've sat the computer on top of the jigsaw puzzle, which is a very dangerous thing to do. If I lose it, I'm going to know exactly whose fault it is.
Oh no, I do love a good jigsaw puzzle. I used to try and make my kids, and I used to do those in the school holidays, but now they're almost 17, 19 and almost 21, and they're not really in the mood to do jigsaw puzzles anymore with me.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you specifically about COCKATOO COVE. I'm going to hold it up again. This is the new book. So when did you, well, it's sort of also a question about ideas in general. Do you keep a list of ideas for books? And if so, like, when did this one originate?
Yeah, so one of the first things that I knew about COCKATOO Cove was that it was going to have a crayfisherman in it and a family that's been involved in the crayfishing industry for many generations, mostly because that was something I hadn't covered before. And in my books, and same with you, Rach, with your stories, is it's not every main character in our rural romances are farmers. So there are so many people in our small rural communities that, you know, don't have their own family farm, or they don't work on a farm. And without all these supporting people in the community, farms wouldn't happen. No one would have anywhere to go buy bread. They wouldn't have anywhere to, you know, so I like to have not just farmers as my main characters, but Maggie West, she's a cattle farmer. I knew that she would have some beautiful Hereford cows and a passion for breeding border collies. And there was several media articles that really helped inspire this one. And I won't say what one of them was because it gives away the subplot, but it was something that seemed to be occurring quite regularly. And I read about it in the rural newspapers and think, oh man, that's no good. Oh yeah, I'm gonna file away that little article. And I've got a little sleeve that I put these newspaper articles into. And another thing that really caught my attention was the Beachport fishermen finding this 5 kilogram crayfish, which is huge. Like most crayfish that they'll sell commercially, like that 1.5 kilo mark, because it's pretty expensive. They draw a big price. So not many people can afford to pay for a 5 kilo cray. That's, $500 plus.
Hey,
So
expensive meal.
yeah, so a big whopper like that they pulled up last year out of the pots, and that was just as I was, really starting to draft this story. I'm like, oh, I need my main character to search for this giant crayfish, and it's an industry that I know relatively well, having had friends and family members that love crayfishing. We've eaten so many crayfishes over the summertime just because people will drop them off. They've hit their capacity for eating crayfish over the summer, and it's like, oh, Linnell's, do you want some crays? Absolutely.
And also, look, I think Fergus is an underused name.
I've used it. I have to say I love it as well. I had a character called Fergus in one of my rules. Great name.
Yeah,
and he's actually a Scot too in your novel, Maya.
Yeah, and he was a really popular character in Kookaburra Cottage, which came out 2 years ago, and people wrote to me saying they wanted to see more of Fergus. So I was really happy to give him his own story.
Do you sorry, I was gonna say, do you have names? Like we talked about names the other day and how I think hard it is to find good male character names. Are you running out? Are you...
Yeah, look, I've pretty much exhausted the list of names that I had wanted to call my own children. So I've put them through all the stories.
Same.
And now I start to look at the kids' class photos, which sounds really creepy, doesn't it, when I say that out loud?
But it's a big collection of names in one place,
Sorry, I look sometimes at the school Facebook groups, community group, like...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just as creepy, stalking people online.
Yeah, and even the teacher, like the names of all the teachers, because
just combine them.
Schools, like there's hundreds of teachers at my son's school, and so it's like, oh, okay, if I wanted a 40-year-old lady or a 60-year-old lady, you Joanne or you Nancy or Tracy.
Yeah, great.
Well, and it's not just the names of your characters that are great. You have fantastic titles too. So apart from Cockatoo Cove, we have titles like Bottlebrush Creek and Wildflower Ridge. And they're all like they're short, but they do a lot of hard work, your titles. So I'm wondering if you have them from the start, and or if there's been any argy-bargy with your publisher about them.
We love a good title discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a bit like Rach in that I will have some ideas of what I'd like to call it, and the publisher will say, oh, thanks for suggesting that. How about here's a list of 10 other options.
Right.
Well, let's work with that. Okay. So Cockatoo Cove.
Okay.
Had always been the name of this one, which is good. Actually, I think I called it Cockatoo Inn because it's based on like the district is based on a real district called Kangaroo Inn, and the school here is Cockatoo Cove Area School, but it's based on Kangaroo Inn Area School in the southeast of South Australia, the beautiful limestone coast. So I had it as Cockatoo Inn for a while, but then because it is a seaside setting and, they're looking for this giant crayfish near Cockatoo Cove. So
it works. And the alliteration.
Yeah.
Yes, but I tell you what, it's a bit tricky when you've got another title recently that starts with a Kookaburra Cottage and Cockatoo Cove. They're very similar.
True, and these are all the things you need to think about when you're writing multiple books, because you've got to look at the titles, how they go with each other, and the covers, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes, like you've had, I'm just trying to think, I haven't got your list of books here, but you basically you have had, as you said, Bottlebrush. Oh, what other ones? I've just my mind.
Wallaby Lane.
Yeah, so you've kind of got a recipe. What's the word? Like
like a formula. Yeah.
You feel that freeing because you can sort of immediately go, okay, I'm gonna have to. Or do you worry about it being like constricting in the future?
Yeah, I think for me it's easier in a way because I know it'll either be Australian flora or fauna, and then it will be a landmark.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be an animal or a bird, or it's going to be a tree or a plant. But interestingly, like my ideas of what is a lovely sounding tree or plant or animal or bird is apparently not always correct.
Really?
Hence the discussion. I would have thought Rosella. What did I have? Rosella Lane at one stage for one of them.
I
And
love Rosella.
yeah, me too.
But like as I say, does that mean now you're actually thinking about this when you're first coming up with an idea because you're knowing that you're going to have an animal that features or something or a flower or something like that? Do you actually think about that in the initial planning stages?
Yeah, but it's not terribly hard because I know, like I tell myself that it'll probably get changed anyway. So if I don't like it, I don't need to stick with it.
Yeah.
And um,
So you don't get too attached.
yeah. So I feel like I can work with it. And I do refer to it as my working title.
That's pragmatic of you. I know it will get changed anyway. So
Do you guys both get attached to books, book titles, or do you go
Well,
down?
see,
Because it's a
Rach starts with a title. She keeps a list of titles on her wall, so I think she is attached to titles.
I do I am attached these days, I think. Not that it means I always get to keep what I'm attached to. So like you, I try not to. But I really love titles, and I think, you know, titles, the whole package, titles and cover can really sell the book. So I'm more strategic about it than I was probably years ago because I've realized that. So I'll fight for a title if I really love it, but it's hard. But I haven't had a fight, I don't think. I haven't had a fight for a while. You know, I did change the Bad Bridesmaid to me was the wedding trap when I was writing it. And my publisher said she was going along with the wedding trap too, but then had this idea that the Bad Brides were better, and she explained she thought it was better because it identified as a person or something, and that was Bridget with a person on it, so it was better because they were linked. So I was like, okay, but it took a little bit to, you know, get used to that, but now I can't imagine it being called anything else. And as Sophie also, like, I guess Sophie spoke at the book club retreat that I run about covers and titles. It was an impromptu chat. But what I now realize is that the wedding trap is harder to show on a book cover than the Bad Bridesmaid, because you got an image you can put out, like, what would you do for the wedding trap, you know, that kind of thing. It wouldn't, and so I guess now I think a bit like that as well, although it doesn't always work because my next book I'm writing now is called Someone Else's Fortune, and I don't want a fortune cookie or a four-leaf clover or anything, so I'm not really sure what image would go on there. But yeah, no, I'm not attached, but I find them like they can inspire a whole story for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you've got beautiful titles, Sophie, as well. Yours is very evocative.
Well, thank you, but yes, most of them were not there from the start. In fact, the first novel that had a title from the start was Weekends with the Sunshine Gardening Society, and that was the first time there was a title in the contract.
Was that your third or
that was my fifth?
Fifth, wow.
Yeah. So the rest of them, it took a while. But now, Maya, I'm looking at the time. We have had you talking for a while, and you do have 3 children and a household that you're running and other things to do. So we should probably let you go. Although I feel there's a lot more to ask you about process and storytelling. So maybe with the next book, if we're still doing the podcast. But Rachel, unless you have any last questions, I think we should let Maya go.
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much. There were so many really interesting insights into how you you know, plan your career and also your books and everything. And I think there's a lot to learn for people at all ages of their stages, I should say, of their writing career. So thanks for being so generous in, you know, giving us a glimpse into your creative life.
Yeah.
No worries. Well, thank you both. It's such a pleasure to be able to be on the program after listening to the podcast quite a few times. It's great. You guys have wonderful guests and a great way of going about interviewing them.
Thanks so much.
Look forward to talking to you again, perhaps. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Well, once again, we have talked for a long time with our fabulous guest, but that was really interesting. And I think Maya has a really interesting career. I do know more words than interesting, I promise you, but...
But look, that's the thing about working with words too, is that we use a lot of them in the course of a day. And I, for example, wrote a blurb this afternoon. So that can sometimes mean, you know, the writing function, the word function gets all muddled, and we do end up using the same word over and over again because our brains go a bit tired.
Yeah, and just because we're like hopefully good at story and character and stuff doesn't mean that it comes out perfectly each time. So when I'm speaking, I'm not editing myself, which I probably should sometimes.
Well, I also have to say, for anyone who's listening, we do, and that was lovely of Maya to say she's listened. I have had some feedback from listeners this week. This is not a natural habitat for me, and it's probably not a natural habitat for you either, Rachel, to be able to record a podcast. This is something that 5 years ago I would never have imagined I would have done. In fact, I would never have. I used to have people criticize me for the way I spoke. So it just, even using a microphone, doing this on camera has actually for me been a triumph of intention and application, because I have thought about how to do it properly. I want to make sure that we're communicating clearly. I talked about Maya being a clear communicator, but
Yeah.
I think about all of those things when I'm doing the country music side of things, when we're doing this. So I really do appreciate everyone who listens and or watches, our viewers, as I like to
Yeah.
say, because it's a big thing. And sometimes we have to get past our fears in order to, and what our imagined restrictions in order to communicate clearly.
True. And there's a lot of writing podcasts out there. We try to do something slightly different in terms of an issue-ish kind of base, but we go off on tangents. And so if you have chosen to listen to us, thank you, because we know, that's everyone has a nearly limited amount of time. But I also want to say, I think it's one thing there, me apologizing for like saying interesting twice and stuff. Well, not apologizing, but just commenting on it, is that we are also just natural, normal, everyday people, and we are just doing our best, and we try to be professional, but occasionally this may as well be live. So
yeah, that's right. Well, that's it. Yeah, it may as well be live. We don't actually edit this unless something happens, like the internet drops out, and then there's a break, and I go back and clean it up. All those sorts of things. Sometimes we've had people inadvertently reveal information that they, not personal, as in a release or something like that they're not meant to reveal at that time, so we edit that out. But otherwise, yeah, it's
a conversation between friends, and hopefully you feel like a friend when you're listening.
Thank you to our listener viewer friends for being here, and thank you, Rach. I appreciate
you too.
your time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.